talking about presidency, and one of the things y'all mentioned was anybody can be president, even Kanye. So is Kanye a genius or a mental health patient? Like, does he need mental health care?
Both.
Yeah, both.
Okay,
some of the craziest people are geniuses, though. Like some of
Right.
some of the most troubled people are geniuses.
Okay, so I've known Kanye since he was 13 years old. And not only do I know Kanye, I know people that knew his mother, Donda West. And so this is real tricky for me because I don't want to tell too much of his personal business.
But you can kind of take up, you kind of understand where he's coming from.
No.
Oh.
I don't agree.
No. I'm like, okay.
No.
Finally,
But you say this.
Go ahead. I'm just messing with them.
Kanye has been diagnosed with having mental health challenges since he was a teenager. So the whole narrative that his mom is not there and he's some kind of unraveled, it's more that his mom was keeping it all in check. That's one. Kanye is a genius. He's a musical genius. He proudly does not read books. He's not a genius. He's of average intelligence. So people have a problem divorcing art from the person. So Kanye can make great art, but Kanye is not that bright of a person. He's the genius musically. He's also an abstract painter. He can paint like Dali and Van Gogh. So he's a creative, and so he's, as far as being a creative, a visionary, he's a free spirit and all of that stuff. But he ain't that damn smart. He definitely ain't no fucking genius, and that's it.
I would disagree on this. I think he's a creative genius for sure. That's undeniable. Like without a doubt, he's a creative genius. Some of the stuff he's done in music and some of the stuff he's done making beats and everything is just beyond the potential of a human being. But that being said, he also says some stuff that is just his thought process when he's speaking. The stuff that he says is
like
deeper.
What?
Let me
actually, I got one. So the big one that just blew up the other day, where Harriet Tubman didn't free the slaves. Yeah. So with that, I mean, and it's crazy too, going back to what Atari was saying earlier with how the media can twist things depending on what side the media kind of swing on here. The biggest thing with that is, I mean, he was right. I feel like he was personally right. You got to think, Harriet Tubman did free slaves. The way he worded it was weird, but on top of that, you got to think for 400 years and whatnot, even up to this day, we're not fully free. We're still working we're still under an oppressive system. We don't have the freedom. We have a sense of freedom, but we're not truly free people, especially our people. We're definitely not free. We've been shackled by institutional, oppression for the last 400 years. But it's crazy how the media kind of took that and made it sound like, oh, he's crazy or he's racist or he's this. But I mean, what the guy was saying was true. I mean,
yeah.
Do you feel like you're free? Like, think about it. Do you truly feel like you're free?
No, they censor our freedom. They censor our speech. Yeah. We get shut down on Facebook all the time.
I'm in Facebook jail right now because of some shit I said. So I mean, we're not free.
Okay. So
if you want to say completely free, no. But were you free from slavery, from bondage, from?
No, not really, because right now most people still work for somebody else right now anyway.
But we're in
contracts to be slaves.
That's not slavery.
But that's figurative bondage. That's figurative bondage. That's not literal bondage.
But that's what he was talking about.
They're still in bondage.
Right, I think he is a genius mentally. He just struggles to get things out in wording in non-music form. You know what I mean? He wasn't trying to say that they were going from literal slavery to more literal slavery. He was saying that the freedom with working jobs was still essentially working under the system that they didn't create.
Okay.
He didn't literally mean that Harriet Tubman's taking them to more slave owners.
And you also got to think about it too. We're saying Black people, as we're one of the higher incarcerated groups in this country. Right. And a lot of times, a lot of our people have been incarcerated for crimes that are not even fair. For example, I had to kind of paint this picture with one of my friends. As a black guy, and say myself as a black guy and my white friend, for example, we commit the same crime, I'm likely to get a much longer sentence, or I'm likely to get a much harder punishment than he would as a white person in this country. So that disadvantage alone, that systemic disadvantage, allows a lot of us to not be free, because not only, yes, we're working 9-to-5 jobs and whatnot, but on top of that, we have one of the highest incarceration rates amongst our people in this country for crimes that are committed. Some of these sentences are not even fair sentences. There's a lot of black people. A lot of them, yeah. Yeah, there's a lot of black people sitting in prison right now in this country for crimes that they probably didn't even commit. Or for petty crimes, they're serving these 10, 15, 20-year sentences.
Whereas, I know. I've had plenty of friends get the description routine. Like, they'll just put random people in there sometimes.
Yeah, they definitely, you can take the same person in the same clothes, in the same everything, but just change the race, and the reaction is going to be different.
And incarceration is just a fancy term for slavery. It's not us being on plantations getting our asses whooped every day, but it's still slavery because you're still in bondage.
I would love to chime in when I get a chance.
Go ahead.
Yeah.
This is what one of the main issues with Kanye is saying. And when you talk about narratives, like earlier you guys were talking about where they cut up Trump. You got to understand that American history is cut up. So there wasn't just Harriet Tubman having an insurrection or going and freeing slaves. Why would they have slave catchers if Harriet Tubman was the only one? That's one. Two, I don't think people understand the horrors of slavery, and we tend to talk about things in extremes and not degrees. Okay, slaves worked from sun up to sundown, and they had a certain number of, let's say, bales of cotton that they had to do, and cotton has things on it that cut your hands, so they would have to rip their hands, and if they didn't work too fast, they would get beat. Men were castrated if they act tough. Women were raped by the slave owner. We're talking about degrees here, okay? And the slave, when they studied slave bones, the bones was eroded from working. And so then when they get free, they not to the degree of that. Now, so that's one thing, and that's what Kanye not reading books comes into play. And when you call him a genius, he's not if he is a genius, he's not an educated genius. Now, when black people, when we were freed as slaves, when we first were freed, right? I'm pretty sure everybody hold a rosewood and all of that, right? Guess who had all the skills? Guess who did we did every goddamn thing on a plantation. So guess what? When we were free, you don't hear the narrative. We did actually have black towns. We did actually have freedom. And what happened was you had certain immigrant groups that saw what we had and they got upset. And that's when you got up with the whole concept of the KKK. And what they did is they remixed it that we were raping white women, but that's not what it was. We were actually being successful. And one of the main things we were successful in is we had successful logging towns. And so that was one of the things that we had. And they actually had wars and stuff behind that. And so what happened was, because we were getting up ahead, they had a formalized system to hold us back. And that was called Jim Crow. And then that goes into all the things you're talking about. But Harriet Tubman, when she freed people, she freed them and they were free. They had businesses, they had whatever, everything that you could imagine. And then we were initially successful. And then they had to make a formalized system to hold us back. And that's called Jim Crow. That's it.
I'll make 2 points on that. First point is basically that what you're saying is true, that at some point we had like Harlem and we had different cities that were black owned and were very successful. We had a whole ecosystem of black people that were interacting with each other, selling each other goods, that were making lots of income and capital. We did have a whole renaissance of black power that we should be very proud of. But at the same time, you could say whoever you want to say, because it's more than just white people versus black people, because there's black people that are part of it as well. That just think that other people, there's people that think that other people are inferior to them and need to work for them. That's what I would say my thoughts on slavery are. But I can get an actual definition if somebody could look that up, an actual definition of slavery, and then we can see if we can actually determine that as something that we're still going through, because I believe we are. But
I want to ask a question real quick to the people that think that we are going through slavery right now. Which slavery would you rather be under right now? Like, would you rather be under the slavery that was on the plantation, picking cotton, under 100% direction of massa, or would you rather be in the slavery where you work and you can't just do what the fuck you want, but if you fuck up, you get fired? Which slavery works better for you?
So I don't.
If they're the same, would you want to pick cotton on the plantation?
I would 100% rather be picking cotton on a plantation and being chased by dogs when I try and run away and all that stuff than doing 75 years in jail.
I'm not asking that though.
But that's what I'm saying. That's part of it. That's part of it.
I think the big thing here, the big part of this that we're not taking though is, I don't think he's talking about slavery only in like a literal standpoint. He's talking about slavery figuratively, because you got to think a lot of us are slaves to something, whether it's debt, you're because you're slave to taxes, you're a slave to your job, you're incarcerated or something like that. We're not free at all. Like not a lot of we're not free. And on top of that, also, if you happen to be a part of a certain group, you're a slave to system. Oppression is slavery, regardless of how oppression is slavery. So it's like if you live if you live under oppression, you're a slave. Now, we're not getting our asses whooped. And to answer your question, yes, I would rather get fired from my job or whatever than get my ass whooped on the field. But at the same time, to deny the fact that we're not, we're truly not free. It just doesn't. No, we're not free. We're not.
You're right. We're not. I want to make this point too. I'm sorry, this real quick because Shawn asked about this. To me, we're talking about. I think that there's a difference between literal slavery and figurative slavery.
This says
the definition of slavery is the state of being a slave. The definition of slave is a person who is legally property of another and is forced to obey them.
This says slavery. This says slavery is excessive dependence on or devotion to something. Would you say that that's something that we're going through?
That's to me that's figurative slavery though.
That's the secondary definition, right? That's the metaphorical definition.
But then,
so you said
Kanye West is not necessarily talking about just a physical slavery, because many of us still are looking for a white savior. We're still looking for somebody to save us. There's a lot of us who were upset with Obama because he didn't do anything for black people, because they figured he's a black president. He's supposed to be able to change things. We're still not figuring out that we can be dependent upon ourselves and not somebody else. Like, we're not necessarily inferior. They don't necessarily have the power to say you can't do this. Yes, it is a struggle. It's a little bit harder. It's a little bit difficult for us to get through sometimes. And sometimes I think we get, we're not necessarily educating ourselves on a lot of things. So when we go and we commit crimes and we don't know the laws, we're taking these pleas because they're scaring us into taking pleas. I've been there, done that, because I didn't know any better. So the next time I got into trouble and decided, okay, I'm going to try to push my rights a little bit, I was actually able to get out of the trouble that I was in. But I think it has to do with just our mentality. Like, a lot of us feel like we can't do it. Oh, I have to have somebody else. Oh, I'm not good enough. And a lot of our people are plagued with that.
Okay, it seems like a lot of you guys are using like this analogy or alluding, I would say conflating slavery to the prison industrial complex. Now, I don't know if you guys read Michelle Alexander's book, but she didn't call her book The New Slavery. She called her book The New Jim Crow. That's what she called the prison, the fact that black people are disproportionately in prisons. She didn't call it the new slavery. She called it the new Jim Crow. And that's all I got to say.
For me personally, I don't look at prison as necessarily the only point. I believe there's a lot of factors because, like I said, again, we sit up here as many of us black people, of our people, will say we can't get ahead because the man is holding us down. That is a part of mental slavery because, again, some of it has to do with our very own choices and the fact that we don't take responsibility for our own actions. We don't take time out to educate ourselves or do better or learn better so that we can do better.
So let me ask this question, right? So we were talking about Kanye, right? The one said he's not a genius. He's a musical genius.
He's a music genius only. He's not a genius in general.
Genius. Or he's a creative genius. That's what I call him.
Right. Right.
Okay, I'll give you that. So when he says statements like Harriet Tubman and free slaves and stuff like that, or slavery was a choice, do you think he is trying to get us to open up our minds to see things in a different way? It's almost like let me get you to think in a different aspect, or is it just him in his mental stage? Because here's the thing, right? If somebody said, just like we're talking right now, somebody tell you slavery was a choice. We just in deep conversation. You don't think that's just somebody just trying to jar you out to see what you think or how you feel? Because maybe that's what he's trying to do. Like I feel like that
is what he's trying to do. He's trying to basically open up our minds to, let us see things from perspective. That's what I feel like that's what he's trying to do. You got to think about it. It's easy to kind of just see things in front of us and think that we have this false, like for example, we have this false idea of freedom because of, I can go outside on my free will. But at the same time, it's like we're all slaves to something. And I feel like he's trying to open our minds to actually see that. Like, okay, we're free in the sense that if I want to go to the store right now, I can go to the store. If I want to, go for a drive, I can go for a drive. But at the same time, I might probably have some debt here that I'm shackled to for a few years, or I'm stuck at this dead end job or something like that. But that's what he's trying to. I feel like that's what he's trying to open our minds to, like the fact that we're truly not free and we all got something that we're tied to, something that we're shackled.
So this is what I'll say on this, and this was the second point I was trying to make. Me personally, I spent my entire middle school in special ed, and it was very hard for me there because I didn't understand why I was there, and the whole entire time I was getting my tests, and basically they would give me an extra week to do it, so I just wouldn't do it. And then a week later, I would take my test and I would ace it with a 99 or 100%. I did this over and over and over again. Then my sophomore year, they actually tested my IQ, came out 147. And physically, the definition of genius is 140. So I'm well within that range. And I can recognize Kanye's intellect. That being said, that's the physical definition of genius is 140 IQ. The written definition, there's 3 of them, and I'll go through it to give you some points. Exceptional intellect or creative power or another natural ability. I would say he exemplifies that in every way. A person who is exceptionally intelligent or creative, either generally or in some particular respect. Now you have to look at it as either what he's saying is completely crazy and it's just part of his mental health, or what he's saying is really well thought out, and it's just to promote free thought. Then another one says a person regarded as exerting a powerful influence over another for good or evil. So even if you believe that what he's saying is completely not good, you could see it as evil, because if you're looking at it as him saying that Harriet Tubman didn't physically free the slaves, that's almost an evil thought. You shouldn't think things like that Harriet Tubman didn't physically do the work, go into slave plantations, get people on the Underground Railroad and save them. But no matter how you view it, good or evil, he definitely he exerts a powerful influence over another. He's a billionaire. Yes, he is. 1.3.
Just to add to what Shawn is saying, I feel like because Kanye has mental health issues, people don't take him seriously. And yes, some of the stuff that he says is off-ball and probably does sound crazy. And then couple the fact that he does have mental health issues, people don't take him seriously. But once again, as an educator and someone who has worked with children who has behavioral health issues and who has also and has also raised my own child who was diagnosed with behavioral challenges. My son now is 20 years old, and some of the stuff that he does is very awkward. He's very socially awkward. And so people look at him as sometimes not being right or in his head, but he's very intelligent. Like, he was doing college math when he was in 6th grade. So I think people don't take him seriously. And I think that people feel that those of us who have mental health challenges are less valuable and we're not intelligent because we have some type of mental health issue. And exactly the opposite is true.